This conference will now be recorded.
Great. All right, guys. So this is where we are. So we started yesterday with a very simple template that we said, okay, fine, we'll go ahead and create the resources and we'll do, a couple of things out there. So we went ahead and under the resources, we went ahead and created what? A storage account, right? So we went ahead and we said, okay, fine. And we created the storage account firstly, and then we said, you know what, it would be great if we can include something called as a dynamism inside our template. And we used our parameter section out there to declare a couple of parameters, and we were also what doing override of these parameters. So we came here and we overrode all the parameters basically, and we were testing it out using the PowerShell script. Now this is good enough, but let's say if I do the same thing again, and let's say we put something like storage account name. So I'm declaring a parameter, and since there is no parameter, I'll go ahead and create a new parameter out here, and I'll say this is storage account name. Type a string and description. We can give a metadata out here. So when it tells a metadata out here, we can say this is the name of the storage account. So it's just for description out here. So this is how we went ahead and said, okay, fine. We can go ahead and declare something like a storage account name out here. Now, we also said that while you're declaring something like this, you can go ahead and let's say, if I save this out, you can come here at any point in time and give something like a storage account name out here. Let's say save this out and let's say, yeah, like you can say the storage account name and you can pass your name out here. Like I have not passed my name. I have not given a default value out here. I am just not giving any value out here in my template. So I can come here and I can pass my name. For example, this can be storage account name sample, something like this. I can go ahead and pass my name out here and I can deploy it out, which is good enough. But I have a requirement something like this. I have different teams who are working together. Let's say I have a development team, I have a QA team, and I have, let's say, a DevOps team. Each and every team needs something like this. They need a resource group. QA team needs, let's say, a different resource group out here. DevOps needs, let's say, a different resource groups out here. And for these teams to work right, they also need the storage accounts inside that particular resource groups. So I can call this particular resource group as, let's say, developer RG, and let's call the storage account something like, let's give a meaningful name out here. So let's say it is dev for a developer. I'll say it is storage storage to indicate that it's a storage account, and I'll just give a random something like abc000, something like this, so that the storage account is actually existing and I can create it out. And the same thing I'll say, okay, fine, it is QA for QA team storage abc000, and for DevOps it's also something like DevOps storage abc000. So I am declaring names like this, and the the thing is that, okay, fine, how can I now create it out? So I'm saying, okay, fine, I'll now take my same template, and now what I'll do is like, okay, fine, I don't have a resource group for developer RG, so let me go ahead and create a resource group. I can either create it using PowerShell, I can also create it manually. Right now I'm doing a manual creation, so I'll say it is a developer RG for developers, and let's put in a QA RG and a DevOps RG also. So I'll say a QA RG for the QA team, and finally I'll say a DevOps RG for the DevOps team. So I have like three RGs right now in place, which are acting as a placeholders. So RGs are taken care. Developer RG, QA RG, and DevOps RG. Now, what do these teams really want? These teams want to go ahead and let's say provision something called as a storage account for them. So I'll say, okay, fine. I have a template already, just a very basic vanilla template which doesn't have any names and etc. And everyone wants it something around in standard LRS. I'll say it is a standard format, and this is a function. So I'll just say, okay, fine. They're all needed in ECUS2. So I'll say it is ECUS2. Fine, which is good enough. Now what I can do is like while deploying it, I can say, you know what? The storage account name is not this, but when you are actually putting it in something like a developer RG, please change the storage account to what? Developer. It's like what? Developer dev storage ABC000. That is what our storage account name was. And when I hit this deployment, it will go ahead and create what? It will create a same storage account with this name under this particular RG in what? EastUS2 and standard LRS with a hot access tier. The same thing can be done for let's say QARG. So I'll say, okay, fine. I'll just have to change this one. I'll say QARG and I'll come here and I'll change what? The name of this particular storage account out here, telling it is QARG. Same thing I'll do for DevOps. But let's imagine that you don't have one requirement out here. I mean, this is straightforward, right? I mean, I can go ahead and I can, let's say, change my name and I can basically deploy it every time that I'm doing a deployment out there, which is straightforward. Meaning all they need is just a change of the name. But let's add a bit of complexity to it because in real time, there would be complexities. Now, the development team, since they are only doing a development, they are good with creating a storage account in standard LRS. The QA team doesn't need it in standard LRS. They wanted something more. So they want a standard GRS. GRS. Now the DevOps team, since they are doing a lot of testing and all, they they want it not in standard LRS or standard GRS, but something like in standard RAGRS. Three different things out here, meaning each and every team right now has a different requirement. Now to add to things, the DevOps wants the storage account not in East US2, but in Central US. Whereas the QA team wants it in where? West US. Because they have testing out there. And the development team wants it in where say East US. So they have three different requirements out here. So guys, any idea what we can do out here? Any suggestions what we can do out here?
Parameterization and maybe hash table we can use.
Okay, great. So
Can,
parameterization, yes. Sorry. Yeah, please go ahead.
can we use if condition?
So I mean, let's not go into conditions right now. So I mean, we can use an if condition, but let's do something more simpler. So I'll say, okay, fine. I'll parameterize this out. Okay. I'll say, okay, fine. Let me include a parameter called parameters location. And even this queue, they want it different, right? So I'll say, okay, fine. I'll also parameterize this queue. Parameters SKU name, something like a meaningful. And since I have not declared it, it's throwing errors out here. So I'll go ahead and declare a few parameters out here. Where is my storage account name ending? Okay, this is my parameter here. Okay. So here I'll give a comma and put a new parameter. And I'll say this is a location. Type is string. I'm not giving any value. Location to create the storage account. Okay. Now I'll say fine. I also need what? A SKU name. I'll say SKU name. This is also a string. I'll say example standard underscore LRS or standard underscore GRS, and same I can put for or standard underscore RAGRS. Now this metadata, right? It's just for commenting. It's if someone comes here, they will say, oh, okay, fine. I need to put a location out for here, or this is the parameter, or this is a placeholder for the location out here. So I said, okay, fine. I am like good with this right now. I parameterize everything. Now what I can do is like I can again come into my script. I can say, hey, okay, fine. I'm deploying it in what? QARG. Let me come here, put something out here like QARG out here, give a space, give a hyphen. Now I'll say location and QA team where it wants. It's in West US. I can say, okay, West US and then SKU. SKU name in what? Standard underscore GRS. So this does my job, right? I mean, I can go ahead and every time I can change these values and I can deploy it. So what am I doing? I am changing the values on the override, meaning I'm passing the values on the override. But is this a good way to do? Not really. Because why? You're passing it manually out here. And let's say I am passing it and I am a user who's passing this out and I forget to pass a different, I passed a different value out here. I did not see where the QA team wants it and I just passed a different value out here and it's now starting, let's say, to create a lot of fuss in the team. Thinking that, hey, you know what, we have requested a storage account to be in West US, but you have created in somewhere like Central US. Then what can you do? Can you change the location? No, right? You'll have to delete the storage account and provision a new one again to them. So all these things introduces a lot of manual effort into it, right, guys? Same page with me. Like you can do this, but not recommended to do this because again, lot of manual work that is actually going into it, right, guys? So any suggestions here? Anything that you all can think of? Anything that that came across your mind while you were reading about ARM templates?
Instead of we need to use arrays.
Okay. Oh, even if I use an array, then how will I make sure to, let's say, pass all these values out? Like this is the problem statement right now that I have. Certainly we can use an array, but when you do a deployment, right? If you declare, let's say, all the three names out here, when you do a deployment, it is going to go into only one resource group. But here I want three different resource groups again. So even if I use an array, I'll end up throwing all the storage accounts in the same resource group, not distributing it across the resource group.
Okay, hash table then.
Even if in a hash table, then see, even array hash table doesn't make a lot of difference out here because while you're deploying it, right, you'll deploy all the three or all the bunch into one particular resource group because one of the main parameters that you're declaring out there in the deployment is your resource group name, right? So you are declaring, let's say, something like a resource group name out here and saying, hey, you know what, I want to deploy it in something like a QARG out there. So this becomes a bit complicated when, let's say, if there are three values out here, that's good. But what if your template has 30 different values and those 30 different values are different from each and every team, like not three, but 30, and they're like different for each and every team. And it increases the complexity more and more. Now, for the same reason, what Microsoft has did or what Microsoft has done basically is that they divided your ARM template or they have like given you a very good structure of ARM template. The one that we are working with right now is called as a main template. Main template, you can pass parameters, you can declare your resources, you can do variabilization, you can do a lot of things out here. So they said, okay, fine, you declare whatever you want in, let's say, your main template. Go ahead, create resources, do whatever you want in your main template. But let's say if you are running into such a kind of a scenario where you have three different teams, you have different parameters that you need to declare, and each and every parameter actually changes for one team to the other, then you can also go ahead and create something called as a parameter file. A main template can be accommodated with something known as a parameter file out here. I can have one parameter file in place for, let's say, the development team. And I can have a different parameter file for, let's say, the QA team. And a different parameter file for, let's say, the DevOps team. And all these parameter files can be accommodated with the main template file. Meaning, what am I talking about right now? Let's see how a parameter file really looks like. How do you create a parameter file and all that stuff. So again, I'll go back to, let's say, my ARM template. I'll say, okay, fine. Here there is an option to go ahead and create or select a parameter file. And it says, oh, hey, you know what? You can go ahead and actually create a parameter file. I'll say, okay, fine. As of now, I don't have any parameter files out here. I'll say, okay, create one. It's a new file and include all the parameters that I'm declaring out here. And now it's asking me, how do you want to name it? Now by default, a parameter file has something like a dot parameters. A main template file doesn't have anything. Like it's just the name .json, while a parameter file has, for example, I'm creating this for what? The developer team, right? So I'll say it is developer.parameter.json. I'll say save. As in when I save this out, right, it will give me a parameter file out here. And all these are like comments, so you can eliminate this out. And all it's asking me right now is that, hey, you know what? I know that you have three different parameters out here, like storage account name, location, and SKU name. So I have declared all these parameters in here. Can you now go ahead and declare values? So I'll say it is dev storage abc 000. Location is what? East US. SKU name is what? Standard underscore LRS. And save. As in when you save it, it now says, oh, you have declared this value in the parameter file, not here. That's good enough. And it's showing those values out here. See, it says, okay, fine, you have declared these values out here, which is like, great. This is actually, great. You can actually go ahead and let's say, now deploy your template. Now, what I can do out here is right now I have given something like sample storage deployment, template file, and all these things. So let me take all these out. And also give something called as a template parameter file. I'm now saying it is not only a template file, but my template file also has a parameter file, and this is my parameter file. And since it's a developer RG, we can say it is a developer RG, if that was the name what I've given out here. So it is a developer RG, just for sanity check. And now I can go ahead and say, okay, fine, deploy this out. Now I am not passing parameters out here. Rather, I am letting my parameter file take care of everything. And parameter file is very simple. It does not have any resources. It just follows a very simple JSON structure where you can just go ahead and declare the values of the parameters that you've declared out here. So I said, okay, fine. I am doing a couple of parameters out here. I can now go ahead and declare these values out there. And this is how I can create. Now I can also go ahead and let's say create three different parameters out here. I'll say it is developer parameters.json, QA parameters.json, QA.parameters.json, and DevOps.parameter.json. So let me also do that. So let me see the deployment is done. Now, if you look at the deployment, right, it says, hey, you know what? Storage deployment is done. It succeeded. Storage account name was something like this. It's ECUS standard LRS, which is for the developer team, which is they are good right now. So look at this particular resource group out here. It has, let's say, a developer storage, something like ABC, which is an ECUS. and which is, let's say, in standard LRS. Now, if the team basically not needs it in standard LRS and they want to, let's say, change it to some other SKU, all you need to do is come to your parameter file and change the SKU type out here. And just change the SKU type out here. That's it. This is the only thing that actually, goes into it. Now then, how do you create, let's say, different parameter files here? Very simple. Come down, it says, you know what, this is the parameter file that I'm using. Do you want to change it? I can say change, I can say new, I can say all the parameters again. I can now say it is QA dot parameters. And the dot JSON is already appended to it. So it's like developer dot parameters and it's QA dot parameters. Now it says, okay, fine. Now give me some values out here. I can now say, okay, fine. Take these values. I'll say it is QA storage ABC000. Location is what? West US. SKU type is what? Standard underscore GRS. And once I save it, even this template, right now it's like just throwing an error right now, but this is like a small bug out there, but this is as good as it. And when I deploy it, I can just say this is not developer.parameter.json. This is rather QA.parameter.json. I'll say it is QA.parameters.json, and I can go ahead and deploy it in what? QARG. So as minimal as possible. Can you automate this also? Yes, you can. By using Azure DevOps and all these things, you can definitely go ahead and automate this also. And right now your template is like, kind of showing out in red, meaning there is like some error out there and stuff like that. But it takes some time. You need to just close this template and open it out. Sometimes it just throws errors that way. But right now, see, it's telling that, hey, you know what, you're actually referring to the QA, right now. So this is the values that I actually get, and I'm good with it. And right now, I can again go ahead and deploy it using this particular parameter file. So all I'm doing is changing one simple parameter file. My entire deployment is actually, taking care of it. I don't have to do anything else. So if I want, let's say, a parameter file for DevOps right now, all I do is like just create a simple JSON file, something like this, and just pass in values in there. And if I have 10 different teams, can have 10 different parameter files, put them in place, and let the automation take care of it. Guys, is this understandable? Is this okay? Guys, any questions here?
Kiran,
Yeah.
instead of ARM templates, we can use Terraform also. Right? We can take 3 or 4 virtual machines and we can do all the configurations, whatever is there. And then we connect using Terraform and we can do the changes, right?
Yes, you can also use Terraform to basically look into changes and all the things, but I'm not really looking at Terraform this early. So, let's, firstly understand ARM, because the thing is that when you understand ARM, it will become very easy for you to work with Terraform.
Okay.
So
in
I'm not
real time, we use ARM also?
in the project that I really worked, we have used a lot of ARM, like especially on Azure,
Okay.
because
Okay.
the main advantage you get with ARM is that the SLA. So you have Microsoft. This is a Microsoft Azure product, right? So if anything goes wrong, you can actually go ahead and file a ticket with them, and they'll come back to help you out. Whereas with Terraform, since being a third party, the SLA is slightly less because that's an open source again.
Okay. Okay, fine.
Okay. Guys, any questions around this? Guys, anything before we move forward? Okay, great. So I'll just take that as a no. And I'll just take that as, I'll just understand that you guys have followed this out. So different parameter files out here. And since I have, it says change, but if you do not have it, it says create a parameter file. You can just go ahead and create a parameter file out here and ask it to fill up the parameters for you. And all the parameters, will just like, be a placeholder out there, and you can just put in values inside it. And your deployments, while doing a deployment, please make sure to pass in this particular parameter called template parameter file out here. Please pass in a template parameter file out here, and this is going to actually this is going to take care of things out. Just pass in that particular template parameter file that you've created, and that parameters files will accompany your main template, which is good. Now another scenario. So let's do more of scenario based of things out here. Is that this is good enough? Like this kind of is good enough. But right now what I'm doing is that I'm creating single storage accounts. I'm saying, okay, fine, I do one storage account, which is good enough for me right now, because I'm just starting out with the basics and etc. Now the scenario has changed a little bit. Now there is one of the teams who needs, let's say, a resource group, like only one resource group, which is like the good enough for them. So I'll just take, where is my symbol for resource group? Okay, found it. They only need one resource group out here, but they need, let's say, 4 storage accounts of the same type but of different name. They need 4 different storage, they need 4 storage accounts out here, and they want it to do using, let's say, ARM templates. Okay, fair enough, right? Fair enough ask. Like there were a couple of projects where they've even asked me to go ahead and create 40 different storage accounts in one particular resource group. So it all depends upon what is the need for the team and how can you support them out. So 4 different storage accounts out here, and the naming convention is something like this: dev store account XYZ01. Same thing for the different storage account, same naming convention, but a little bit different, like dev storage account XYZ02, dev storage account XYZ03, 04, 05, and all that stuff. Now what I can do here is like, okay, fine. I now basically do not really need a parameters file because it's only one team right now and they need 4 different storage accounts. So let me say, okay, fine. Let us create a new file out here, and let's say ARM templates. I'll say, okay, fine, ARM. Start with this like a basic file. I don't need a function. I don't need an output. So clear that out all the way so that my template is like lighter. So now what I need to do right now is like, okay, fine. I want storage accounts, 4 different ones. I'll say storage. First one, name is what? Dev storage. Or I can say, don't do this, but parameters storage account name 1. Same thing, declare your parameter out here. Storage account name 1. And I will go with a default value out here, telling what it is: dev storage account XYZ01. Good enough. It will create your first storage account. Let's say this is in standard LRS. This tier is also standard. And this is like this, this display name tags and all is not really mandatory. And this now, guys, is a function. What is it doing is that in whichever resource group you're going ahead and deploying this particular template, right, it will pick up the location from that particular resource group. So it says, go to that particular resource group and take for a location. Like these are the standard functions basically that you get when you just, go ahead and create something. So I'm good with it. In whichever resource group that I, throw this out, I want all these resource groups to be created in the same location out there. I'll say, okay, fine, this is good. Now you need 3 more. I'll say, okay, fine. Let me do one thing. Since this is an array, let me make use of it. Resources is what? Is an array, like we discussed yesterday, meaning you can create not one but multiple resources, right? So what I'll do is I'll say, okay, fine. Let me now do, this is the first storage account block. This is where it is ending from here to here. Now, if this is confusing, all you need to do is come here. This is like line 15, right? You can collapse this line. Visual Studio Code also gives you this functionality. Now this becomes a bit easier when you're trying to, let's say, write a lot of things and you don't want, to see a couple of things, and you can collapse this out. But for me, I'm okay with this. I'll say comma. I'll just take the entire block of code from, let's say, from here to here and put it in here again. And I'll say this is 2. And I'll say I need a new value out here. So my first value is ending here. So I'll put a comma here. And I'll say new parameter. My parameter name is storage account name 2. Take the default value. Just copy this, paste it out here. Now I'll do XYZ 2. Again, I need what? Third storage account, right? So let me go here, put a comma. Three, declare a value called what? 3. So it's starting here, it's ending here. So I'm putting here, and I'll say storage account name what? 3. Name 3. And the value is what? I'll just take this particular default value, edit this particular section, put here something like this. I'll say 3. And here the only thing I'm missing here is a comma. So just take it out. So if you want a fourth storage account, what are you going to do, guys? Just go ahead, copy this out, put it here, create a fourth storage account. Guys, are you good with this? Guys, any
Yes.
question with this procedure? But the thing with this is that I also said that, you know what, there were scenarios where I went ahead and also created 40 different storage accounts. Now this template is going to work. Now if I do a control S, let me do save this template out, and I'll say multiple storages, and I'll save it in what? A JSON. This is going to work. This is not throwing any errors as of now. So all I need to do is like come here, change this one out because I don't have a template parameter file right now. So I can let go of this particular parameter, and I'll say the template file path is something like dot something, and it is what? Multiple storage accounts dot JSON. I can go ahead and I can deploy it in any resource group that I want. And this will create me how many? 3 different storage accounts. It will go ahead and create me 3 different storage accounts out here. There's also called something like the RM template outline. It'll also tell you what are the resources that you're creating. If you come down, you have like what? 3 different storage accounts that are getting created. So you can, like, it's showing storage 1, storage 1, storage 1, right? It's showing the display name out here. Say storage 1, storage 2, storage 3. Even see my left and bottom screen is also changing when I change this out. Storage 3. So this will help you to say, if I click this, it will show the entire code out here, that what all you have written and all that stuff, which is good enough. But what if I want to create 40 different things? Now for 3 storage accounts, I took somewhere around 5 minutes in order to write the entire template, right? It's working. It's definitely working. If I go ahead and let's say, put things out, if I go ahead and let's say execute this command, it'll go ahead and create these 3 things out here. But does anyone here feel that, this is a bit more manual process? It's like tedious, right?
Yes.
Like, it's a lot of tedious basically. That all this involves a lot of manual effort out here. Then how can I get around with it? Like, is there a better way of doing? Of course, yes, there is definitely a better way of doing. So let's close these files out because we don't need them for now. And let's only work on this particular file. There is definitely a better way of doing it. And that particular way is called copy index. Copy index is the for each loop of ARM template. What would copy index really do is that if you want to, let's say, create multiple resources, you can go ahead and leverage this particular parameter out here. You can go ahead and, let's say, leverage this particular parameter out here, which is called copy index. Now then, how do I use my copy index? Now this might be a little bit confusing for people, so please, I'll go a bit slow than the usual. So please try to follow this out. Now, the only thing that is changing in my entire thing. Now, if you look at my names, right, what I did is, like I said, dev storage account XYZ 01, 02, 03, and so on. Meaning, what is the only thing that is changing, guys? It is the name, or it is, let's say, the number at the end, 1, 2, 3, and so on. And so forth. For example, I need 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. It's just the number which is changing at the end, right? So what I'll do right now is I'll say, okay, fine. I don't need this big code right now. I don't need all these things out here. So let me try doing a Control Z. Okay, just kind of put entire my file out. Not a problem. I'll take this again. I'll say storage. And I need what? Multiple storage accounts out here. So the first thing I'll do is parameterize my storage account name. I'll say a new parameter out here, this type, and the default value is this particular value. This is, let's say, a static value out here, which I am good with. Good enough. Now what I'll do is I'll say, you know what, parameters storage account name. Parameter 1 is called what? Okay, sorry, I put this as still parameter 1. So I'll say storage account name, and I will use this parameter out here called storage account name out here. But the issue with this is what? If I go ahead and deploy it out, I will only get how many? One storage account, right, guys? But I need to do what? I need to make sure that this year changes to 1, this year changes to 2 and 3, and so on and so forth. How many of storage accounts I want. So let me firstly do this as a standard so that it will save our cost while deploying. I'll say this is also standard, and the rest of all is like good. So this is storage, or just say storage account. Now what I want to do is every time this template deploys, I want to add this string with something like 1, 2, 3, and this is of a data type called integer because this is a number, right? So I want to add a string, and I want to make sure that this string basically gets added with an integer every time it's getting deployed. For the first time 1, second time 2, third time 3, so on and so forth, to create n number of storage accounts out here. Now, adding is a very simple term. If you complicate it a bit further, or if you sophisticate it a bit further, adding is also called concatenation. If you just take the word called concatenation and put it in an English dictionary, it will just say combining two things. That's it. And Microsoft has a function for that called concat. Then how do I really declare it? I'll say, you know what, concat open parenthesis and close parenthesis. What do I want to concat? Whatever that I'm getting from this particular default value with an integer, right? So I'll say concat parameters storage account name with what? With an integer. But right now that integer needs to counter itself, meaning first time it is 1, second time 2, third time 3, fourth time 4, so on and so forth, comma, copy index. As simple as this is. I'm saying, you know what? Do an iteration right now. Go ahead, do an iteration right now. Declare something called as a copy index function. Copy index is my way of iterating things. And by default, copy index starts from 0. Then goes to 1, then goes to 3, depending upon the number of copies that you want. But I want this to start from where? 1, right? So I'll just put an index, or this is called as an offset value. I'll say 1. It will now start from 1. I'll say, hey, you know what? Go ahead and start the deployment from 1. So this is adding. If I basically turn this function, or if I basically say convert this function, it will just say, you know what? Okay, fine. Parameter storage account name. I need to concat, meaning I need to add 2 things. What I need to add? First thing, parameter storage account name. What is the parameter storage account name? This one. Okay, I'll take this. Adding with what? With copy index. Oh, okay, fine. So this guy is trying to do an iteration, and the counter is 1. Now my template is still throwing me an error. Did I anywhere mention in my template how many copies that I want? No, right? So it's saying, you know what? Hey, if you hover out this error, it's saying, you know what? This particular expression called concatenation is failing because the template function copy index is not expected at this location. Because I don't understand how many copies that you want me to create it out. I don't know how many copies that you are actually expecting me to, produce out. So what I'll say is that, hey, you know what? Okay, don't worry. I'll declare another parameter called copy. And this parameter will give you a clear idea about how many number of copies you need to generate. I'll say this particular name of this copy operation that I'm doing is called a storage copy. A very generic name that I'm giving out there. And now I'm saying the count. Count is what? How many? 4. I need 4 different storage accounts. So please go ahead and create those 4 different storage accounts as per what I have given. So instead of writing lines and lines of code, I am just using the same code out here so that my resources are iterated over. I'll just say save. I'll just take a sample resource group basically, which is empty, so that we can look into what is getting created out here. So let's say QA-RG, I don't think I've deployed anything. Okay, there is still one here. I think DevOps RG is free. So DevOps RG, take this out. Location is East US. So all your storage accounts will be created where? In East US only. So I'll say, okay, fine. Resource group name is now DevOps RG. Template now is like what? Multiple RGs dot storage account, which is like good. Multiple storages dot JSON. So I'll say, okay, fine, execute this out. Now, as and when I execute it out, if you look at the resource group out here, if you give it a couple of minutes, you will have the deployment that is coming from my local machine. And if you look at this particular deployment out here, it is creating 4 different storage accounts, 1, 2, 3, and 4 parallelly. I am doing a parallel creation of 4 different storage accounts. So even if they were 40, it would have done what? A parallel deployment out there. Even if there's like 400 also, you can go ahead and say, you know what, do a parallel deployment. Meaning, what is the advantage of it? Is that the time that you're taking to create one storage account, you're actually going ahead and creating 40 different ones. And if you look at the resource group right now, I have multiple storage accounts that got created with the same, with like, different name and the same attributes out here in East US location. Guys, did you all get this? Guys, any questions here? This is one of the most important concepts and you will be using this a lot. Copy indexing is one of the most popular concepts that you will be using out there, because now you understand the amount of time that this is actually saving for you all, right? You don't have to write lines and lines of code out here. Rather, you can leverage something called as copy indexing. Guys, is this okay? Any questions that I can take out here?
Yes, we got the concept, but we need to start practicing on this.
Mhm. Guys, anyone else? Does anyone has any other questions out here? Simple enough, good enough. Let us take this to one step more. What am I telling is this? This is good. Like whatever you have done here is like good enough. But I need 4 different storage accounts with 4 different attributes. Meaning you have created like 4 different storage accounts with the same kind of attributes. Now what I want is something same, but storage account 1 should be created, let's say, in West US. Storage account 2 should be created in, let's say, Central US. Storage account 3 East US. Storage account 4 West US, and stuff like that. Okay. To complicate things a bit more, telling that, hey, you know what, this is what I need, the attribute, and also the tier, the replication tier that you're actually creating the storage account should also be very different. So I say, okay, this is a bit new for me. Like I don't right now understand what to what to really do. So let's go for another template and say ARM, call our templates out. And right now I'll say one thing is that firstly, I will declare what I need to create. What I need to create, guys, I need to create storage accounts. So I'll say this is a storage account array. Now I am doing an array declaration out here. And I'll say the type here is not a string but an array. And the default value out here should be passed in what? Square brackets. The default value out here is passed in square brackets because this is an array declaration. And how do I pass my array right now? I'll say account name is something like QA real, QA storage account XYZ 012 or something like this. Location is what? I need a location somewhere in what? East US 2 for this particular storage account, for the first storage account. And I need it in a tier. I'll say SKU name is what? Standard underscore LRS. Now I'll say I need another storage account with a different attribute set. I'll say this is XYZ2. It's not East US, but it is like West US 2. It is not standard LRS, but standard GRS. So all I'm doing is just declaring my parameters. If you have n number of storage accounts, you can declare n number of parameters out here with different attribute set. What do I mean by attribute set? Location, SKU, and all these things are now changing. Now what I'm going to do here is please carefully observe storage, creating a storage account right now. And I am saying, hey, you know what? It is parameters storage account array, because that's the only parameter that I ever declared. Storage account array, but also after that, do something known as a copy index. But if you want the name from this particular array, what do I declare the name, guys? This is the account name, right? So I'll say it is dot account name. Now look at this. What is it doing is that it's going here and it's saying, hey, you know what? This is okay. The account name basically that I'm actually pulling out from that particular array. So go here from parameters storage account array, go into the copy index loop and look for something called as an account name, which is going to resolve to an account name. Now this is still throwing an error to me. If I look at this, it says, you know what, the template validation failed, at line number is not expected, copy index function is not there. I know that. I have not declared what is the copy count. It's okay, but let's first fix this out. So I'll say the tag values also, I mean, you don't even need a tag value out here. So I'll just say take this out, and even the location is different for each and everything, right? So let's take this guy out and say parameters storage account array. Now copy index, this time what? It is what? A dot
Location.
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 Great. Location dot location out here. Skew also is different for each and everything. Same thing I'll apply, the same concept I'll apply. I'll say parameters storage account array, copy index, open braces and close braces, dot skew name. And says, okay, fine, I understand what you're trying to do, but it's still throwing an error telling that, you know what, it's good, but I don't understand how many times I have to, like, you know, kind of iterate. I don't know basically how many times I need to create this or not, how many times I need to basically, or how many parallel counts that you're actually giving me. You're not giving a count here, right? But what can be the count here, guys? The count is 2, right? Like 1, 2, 2 arrays. So I can actually go ahead and give a count called 2. But your templates, let's say if you are, let's say, doing, if you are adding one more array to it, in the future you come here and say, hey, you know what, I need a third storage account, go ahead and create a third. So you need to change that. You also need to change the array. I mean, you also need to change the copy count. So I'll say what, this time it's going to be a bit different. I'll say this is multiple copies and the count is not going to be a static value. The count rather is going to be something like this function, the length of parameters storage account area. This function, okay, let me put a comma here. This function, which is the length of parameters array, would go into the parameter, say it says, hey, okay, fine, there are 2. Oh, so I need to do 2 different times out here. The first time I do, I take this one and this one. Second time I iterate over it, I'll take this second value. If you now put a third value into it, you don't have to change anything out here because this function is taking care of it. This function is actually going ahead and taking care of things a lot. So if you just save this out, I'll just say multiple advanced dot, or just take the JSON file out here. And now what I'll do is, like, I'll say, okay, fine, this is the DevOps RG only, but right now it is not this particular template that I'm using, but it's a different template. So what, multiple advanced. Now I'll say, okay, fine, go ahead and execute this out. Same name of the deployment. So you'll actually go ahead and see this out. Storage deployment has been, and if you refresh for a couple of times, it will tell you what is it exactly creating and how is it exactly creating out. So in the future, if you just want to change this out, like you just want to change one particular attribute out here, just have to come here in multiple advanced and just change. For example, they need a GRS. They need a different location. Of course, if let's say if you do a different location, it kind of would fail because the storage account cannot be migrated to a different location as such. But attributes like let's say SKU name or attributes like let's say access tier, everything that you can declare, everything that you can change, you can actually declare out here. And now it says, you know what? I went ahead and created all these things for you. Two things. If it was 20, it would have also gone ahead and created what? 20 different things out there. Is this okay, guys? So this was a very simple copy indexing out here. And this is something called as an advanced out here. Guys, are you good with this? Any questions, guys? Anything that I can take? Anyone who did not follow this or anything? Guys, any questions?
Can we parameterize that template which we are creating the storage account names, those things?
This one you mean? Like you create a parameter file for this?
Yes.
Yes, you can create also a parameter file for this. When you create a parameter file for this, you need to pass the array values for it. You just need to pass the same values, like something like this. So you can also override these with the parameters.
Yeah, we can create only one this account name, location, SKU name, and we will pass that parameters from the parameters.
Yeah, you can pass it out in that way also.
Okay.
But I'm just explaining a scenario where you need, let's say, multiple storage accounts in the same account, in let's say the same resource group. And always remember, guys, your ARM template deployment is scoped to one resource group at a time. The scope of an ARM template is one resource group deployment at a time. You cannot deploy like multiple storage account to multiple different resource groups out there. You cannot do that. It's like one resource group at a time. But if you want to do something like that, then our goal is what to do multiple parameter files out here, different parameter files and different commands out there, and you'll actually go ahead and deploy this out. But normally we don't deploy it using this command line at all. Like this is very in a very rare case scenario where we are just trying to debug something or just trying to do something like that. A very rare case scenario where you'll go ahead and use this particular command line out here. In most likely you will basically use these ARM templates along with Azure DevOps. So that makes things more interesting and more fun. Like when we start looking at Azure DevOps, we will see how we can do that. Is that okay, guys? Any further questions that I can take for today? Anything, guys? Now, these concepts, until and unless you don't go ahead and practice yourself, you will not understand what is the complexity of it. So my request for you all is after this class, please take the video, look at yesterday's class, which is covering the basics of the ARM templates. Look at today's class, which we are doing a bit of advanced with the ARM templates, and practice this out. That will help you all with a lot of conceptual clarity about what we are doing and why we are doing and how we are doing and all. And also try out something, kind of different things out there so that's kind of, gonna help you out. Is that okay, guys?
Yes. So in real
Okay,
time,
guys.
how
Yeah.
many storage accounts did you gone through? Means the number how many?
So let's say in the real-time environment, the project right now that I'm working on is very big. So I have 5 different storage accounts for each and every team, and we have somewhere around 7 to 8 teams. So we kind of create the parameter files and we place it in the Azure DevOps, and we kind of help them out in creating them out.
Okay, how many resource groups?
7 teams, right? So 7 different resource groups.
Okay.
Okay, guys, and if there are no further questions for today, then we'll go ahead and call it a day. And remember, guys, this Sunday we are going to have a class. So we do not have a class tomorrow. 29th, that is Sunday. Same time from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. We can go ahead and discuss more on the Azure resources. So that's it from
Thank
my
you.
end, guys. Yeah, thank you. Have a great day ahead.